Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. It is Monday, May 11th. I'm coming at you with a poem of the day, inspired for a couple different reasons. I know I'm trying to get the screen not to glare directly over my eyes there. It's a funny angle. Um, I picked today's poem because I know Mr. Richardson, for example, in a few poems he's mentioned, here both for the poem of the day and for the cross country team. Um, he very frequently thinks about like the value of work in and of itself, and I've always believed that. My um, I feel like I was raised the same way by my parents, for which I'm very grateful about. Not just like the whole Calvin and Hobbes, like it builds character, whatever the chores might be, but the actual just the value of work. And I just got back from a run. My wife and I went for a run, and we've been trying really hard to balance both of our work schedules with each other's and with ourselves and things like that. So we this poem just stuck out to me about the value of work, and I just think it's a beautiful little poem by Sally Bliumis-Dunn. Bliumis. I'm mispronouncing your name. I'm very, very sorry about that. And so this is a poem. It's a poem that I thought was fitting because the run was extremely rewarding. Last week, with the first, like the preliminary beginning week of this audit process, I feel restored in some ways. I know Friday I was talking about how exhausted I was, but there's something a little bit different about engaging on a different sort of intellectual plane that for which I'm very grateful. So I'm going to read this poem called "Work." I don't know if in celebration, in honor, in commemoration. I don't know what in what I'm feeling, but I'm happy. I'm happy to read this poem, and it's a great moment. And yeah, so I'm going to read this poem to you now. So this is a poem called "Work" by Sally Bliumis-Dunn, and here we go. I could tell they were father and son, the air between them slack as though they hardly noticed one another. The father sanded the gunnels, the boy coiled the lines, and I admired them there, each to his task in the quiet of the long familiar. The sawdust coated the father's arms like dusk coats grass in a field. The boy worked next, on the oarlocks, polishing the brass until it gleamed as though he could harness the sun. Who cares what they were thinking, lucky in their lives that the spin of the genetic wheel slowed twice to a stop and landed each of them here. I really love this poem because it not only speaks to the value of work, but there's something really magical about the the endeavor of manual labor in addition to intellectual labor. I've been kind of fiddling around with different ways to introduce the audit work to my students and grant and create access and things like that. And that's not exactly the same as manual labor. But I've also been trying a little bit to explore working with my hands a little bit more in a way I don't think I ever have in my whole life recently. So mostly building projects for my little guy. So yeah, I don't know. There's just a beautiful poem that's a great, like, I love that ending, right? Talking about the genetic wheel slowing twice to a stop, and landing them both here. I think that's really wonderful. I really I love that imagery. I love that idea. And there's just something, I think I tend to be someone who enjoys sharing things aloud with a group. Being a teacher, especially a teacher of literature, but there's also something really really beautiful and moving and powerful about sharing quiet moments of creation as well, sharing quiet moments of fine work, and so I'm certainly no Ron Swanson by any means, but yeah, I don't know. This poem reminds me, of my dad and Mr. Richardson and my father-in-law, all of whom are craftsmen in their own ways. And so I like to think that I'm trying to learn, from people like them all the time. And I've picked up some pretty neat things over the years. In any event, that poem is called Work. And I think it's a good one for this Monday. So, take care of yourselves. Be good to yourselves. Wash your hands. Stay inside. I know it's hard. I know it's hard. But that's what we got to do. All right. So, we will see you again tomorrow for another edition of the Poem of the Day. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.